evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. Our first order of business is a special meeting to consider a resolution setting the location of our September regular meeting. Will everyone please rise for the invocation to be delivered by our clerk, Jeff Hall.
Almighty God, creator of all and judge over all, we pray thee to guide our work in this meeting and in all our duties. We pray for our officers and members of this legislature who serve and guard the welfare of the citizens of this community, that by thy blessing they may be enabled to discharge their duties honestly and well. We pray that by thy help they may observe the strictest justice and preserve untarnished our loyalty to our county and to thee. Amen.
Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Legislator Como. Thank you. Before we begin, I'd like to make some comments. On August 18th, we lost a friend and true public servant with the passing of Legislator Brian McGarry. All of us on the county legislature and in county government were saddened by his passing, but we remain truly inspired by his dedication and his drive to continue serving our residents throughout his illness. While his time with us was too short, Brian led a full life. He graduated from Draper High School, where I first got to know him in 1975. He went on to attend SUNY Geneseo to obtain a degree in speech communications in 1979, and he opened McGarry Photography and worked as a cameraman at Channel 6 for 11 years. In 1983, Brian married the love of his life, Patricia McGarry, who is joining us this evening, with whom he raised 6 children and became an extremely devoted husband and father who loved to spend time with his family. Sometime later, Brian decided to go back to school to pursue teaching and graduated in 1992 with a master's degree in elementary education from the College of St. Rose. Brian went on to teach 4th and 5th graders at Jefferson Elementary before accepting a job at Duanesburg Central Schools, where he would teach 6th graders for the next 24 years. And in 2013, Brian sought to serve his community, the community he loved, as an elected official. He joined this body and eventually became the leader of the Minority Caucus, a position in which he served with honor and distinction until his passing. Brian's record of public service should serve as an example for all of us on how to work together and how to govern effectively for the betterment of our community. Our sincere condolences go out to the entire McGarry family during their difficult time, and I would ask all of you to join me in a moment of silence in remembrance of Legislator Brian McGarry. We'll now move to our special meeting. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Fields. Present. Mr. Russo.
Here.
Scotta.
Here.
Mr. Frazzoni. Here. Mr. Cuomo. Here. Mr. Paterni.
Present.
Ostrowich.
Here.
Mr. Hess.
Here.
Mr. Hughes.
Present.
Mr. McDonald. Mr. Jazinski.
Present.
13 present, 1 vacant.
Thank you. Special meeting is now called to order. Will the clerk please read the notice of special meeting?
Please take notice that pursuant to subdivision 3 of section 2.03 of article 2 of the administrative code of the county of Schenectady, there is hereby called a special meeting in the county legislature on Tuesday, September 6, 2022 at 7 p.m. by the call of Anthony Jazinski Sr. in the legislative chambers, Schenectady County Office Building, 620 State Street, Schenectady, New York, for the consideration of a resolution setting the date and time and location of the county September 13th, 2022 regular meeting.
Thank you. Our first item is Resolution 133-22. Rules, clerk will read.
A resolution resolution designating a change in the place of the meeting for the September regular meeting of the Schenectady County Legislature.
Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Fields. Aye. Mr. Russo. Ms. Pratt.
Aye.
Mr. McGill.
Aye.
Mr. Constantine.
Yes.
Ms. Gatta.
Yes.
Mr. Pizzoni.
Yes.
Mr. Cuomo.
Yes.
Mr. Paterni.
Aye.
Ms. Osowich.
Yes.
Mr. Hess.
Yes.
Mr. McGarry. I'm sorry, the one vacant. Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Mr. McDonald. Mr. Jazinski.
Aye.
14 aye, one vacant.
Thank you. The resolution is passed. And just to note for the record, our September 13th regular meeting will be held at 7 o'clock p.m. at the Boys and Girls Club of Schenectady at 104 Education Drive in the city of Schenectady, and that there will be a special meeting
Judiciary and Consumer Affairs to order. There is one item on the agenda, CJCA1, a resolution to accept monies from the New York State Board of Elections for expenses related to prepaid postage for absentee ballots and applications. County Election Commissioner Darlene Harris is here to provide information on this initiative.
Thank you. This was provided to us just recently. They had discussed it because they had passed legislation that all absentee ballots now, all absentee voters, are provided a prepaid envelope to return. This particular process started in July 1st, and the state has provided money in order for us to cover that cost. It does expire on December 31st, but certainly they did give us an allotment of $37,000, and we're very appreciative of that.
Are there any questions or comments?
I have a comment. First, I'd like to thank you as much work as you guys all do at the Board of Elections. We really, really appreciate your hard work. I just want to say that I think this is awesome. Any way that we can ease the access of voting and allowing more people to vote and make sure their voices are heard is always, always a good thing. So I just want to say thank you for moving this forward. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Move to report.
I second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. That concludes our business. The Committee on Codes, Judiciary, and Consumer Affairs is now closed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to be chaired by Legislator Hughes.
Took a lot of pages to get to the first thing here. So we have 3 items tonight in economic development and planning, and for the first, I'm joined by Ray Gill, who I'm going to ask to stay for the other 2. I'm also going to, at that point, ask Attorney Chris Garden to join us as well. We all know that water is a huge issue in our country, access to water, availability of water. We are so blessed in Schenectady County that we have a tremendous supply of water from the Rotterdam Aquifer. And Commissioner Gillen is here tonight to discuss a resolution that would designate a certain amount of county-owned land near the wellheads in the town of Rotterdam as protected space.
Thank you. Thank you, Legislator Hughes. The county owns a 16.8-acre site taken through foreclosure a number of years ago. It is close to, as you can see from the visual up on the board, both the Rotterdam and the city of Schenectady well fields. asking the legislature to continue its work to protect our Great Flats aquifer by designating this as open space for source water protection. This is a designation that we're starting to see in communities around the state and around the country who are seeking to protect their water supplies. It's a good, positive designation. Placed on the deed for the properties to prevent the property from being used for anything else in the future except the protection of our water supply. Of course, there's no cost to the county for this action because we already own the property. Continues our efforts to protect and preserve the Great Flats aquifer, as Legislator Hughes said, it's one of our greatest assets. In recent years, we took down the L&M Motel, which was unsightly near the well fields. We took down Bobby's Auto, which was right next to the well fields, presented a clear and present danger to the well fields. We worked, this legislature worked closely with Congressman Tonko and Senator Schumer to secure $15 million to clean up a plume at the Navy depot, which could have been a threat to the aquifer. That was one of the most important things that I think we've ever done. And we've used water carefully as an economic development tool, landing the Bel Joso cheese factory, landing major expansions at Adirondack Beverage. Companies are seeing the advantage of moving to Schenectady County and creating jobs and tax base here because of our outstanding water supply. Our whole smart growth development team in Schenectady County does nothing else but start with protection of the aquifer. It is that important. As Legislator Hughes said, there are water wars, there's water disputes, there's hot weather, there's water crises around the country. And I knew the minute we put this on the agenda, we'd have 2 or 3 days of rain, but maybe it was the cure. But seriously, the aquifer is just a gem. It's one of the strongest things that we have in the county. It's one of the best assets we have. And this measure tonight, we're asking for support to continue to protect this great asset.
You all see 3 days of rain, I see recharging the aquifer.
That's
So
right.
it's all in how you want to look at it. Are there any questions from any of our members?
Mr. Chair, just an administrative question, maybe it's better answered by council, but how do we make permanent durable over multiple conferences and legislative bodies yet to come?
I'll defer to the attorney, but I'll try to, basically, we're not designated as parkland because we don't want it to be used for parkland or have recreational assets there right next to the well fields. We're designated as permanent open space with the designation that it would be to protect the water source. And that would go on the deed, and so therefore, anyone who looked at this property in the future would see that on the deed and realize that it's not developable. It's also in zone 1 of the aquifer recharge zone, which has very severe limits on any kind of development. Is that? Okay, thanks.
Thank
And
you.
it's our property to begin
Right.
with, so.
Thank you.
The future body would have to decide to sell it. Any other questions?
Just a quick question and comment. First, I want to thank you for your tireless work over the years to clean up our environment and take good care to protect our aquifer. In the face of climate change, we see what's going on certainly these past few months in Mississippi and all over the world. What would you say poses the biggest threat to our water source in Schenectady County? And what do you see as maybe further action items?
Well, I'll tell you, when this legislature came together, leadership changed in '04, and I came into this position as planning director, I was shocked at how little was being done in the county. We had to serve a notice of violation on somebody who was polluting very close to the aquifer, and I was told they had never issued a notice of violation before. They didn't know how to do it. So there was just a lackluster approach to the aquifer prior to '04. We've radically changed that. It is really foremost in our thinking. Above landing a company or landing more jobs, nothing is more important in the planning and economic development department than protecting the aquifer. It's really continuing to look at the land area around the well fields and looking at every opportunity to do something like this is to secure the future of that parcel and protect it. Bobby Young was huge, L&M Motel was huge, the Navy depot was huge. The Navy depot was a severe threat, and we were eternally grateful to Senator Schumer and Congressman Tonko for getting us $15 million in cash to fix it. So we gotta just keep at it. It's a small, small ground game, but protecting the well fields is key.
And I would add to that, we've also done some work in terms of reinforcing the wells themselves, which came kind of out of Irene.
Right.
That's a good lead. So I believe at one point the water crested over the. This in order, or we might want to take the soccer first. It's fine with me. We gotta get to both of them. So we'll do the soccer. So let's see, what's called for here, the action I'm gonna ask you to move to the agenda, is a resolution that would call on a public hearing to set local law C. And local law C pertains to some property that the county holds in trust for the county, the Schenectady County Community College, which is the intent of the college, intent of the county, to see a developer lease the space and create a soccer facility. So with that, I will turn it over to you two gentlemen.
Thank you. We're working closely with Chris Gardner, Frank Salomo, Dr. Mono, who came to the United States to play soccer. So he loves soccer. Played it in college, and Vice President Ryan. This is essentially the same transaction that you approved previously for another group that was not able to get the financing in place to build the soccer facility. This new group is Northeast Rush. They have 4,000 players. They're the largest soccer club in the country. There's 110 different Rush clubs in the United States. They would like to lease a 12-acre site, which we show on the screen. It's a great site. It's right next to the Empire State Trail. It's right next to the MVP fitness station that was just built. It's got huge parking assets of the college that can be used for tournaments and practices and games. The group would fund the entire development themselves. They've given us a letter of commitment from their bank. They would pay the full appraised value of the value of the lease. Would be a long-term lease that would produce about $56,000 a year. Half of that would go directly to the college in the form of cash. The other half would go to the college, just like the last deal, in the form of a credit for hours that they use the facility. They plan to use the facility quite a bit. It would be a sports dome with some outdoor fields as well. Again, the entire cost is covered by the county, by the soccer club, excuse me. There are no costs to the county. The county makes money on this deal. Again, we're excited about practices. The club would also bring in and lease the facility to other organizations, other soccer teams, other soccer clubs. So there'd be practices going on there, tournaments, games. They even have, Rush has a couple of minor league soccer teams that they sponsor that would play there. We know that the folks, Kathy Gatta and Legislator Gatta and the team at Discover Schenectady are very excited about this, because this would give us another venue to promote for tourism. They're very excited about the fact that there's so many amenities, hotels, restaurants and things so close to the site. It basically provides a sports facility to the college at no cost and a recreational asset for the county at no cost. So we're hoping that we can ask for your support and move this forward. I want to thank Chris and Frank for all their work in drafting all the documents, and the Rush people are very excited about moving forward with this project.
Do you have anything? Chris, you want to add anything? Any questions? I would, before we open it to questions, I would just point out that it also creates the potential opportunity for the community college to create a soccer team. They do not have one now, but they could create one with a first-class facility, which to play their games, and that has the potential to enhance enrollment. So it really comes around in three different ways as a benefit to the college and a benefit to the community.
And piggybacking on that thought, which is a very good one that I had missed, but it's really good exposure for the college too. You know, you look at the site and the big parking lots there, the games and things are times when the college isn't having the bulk of its classes, so it's good counter programming. But it's just positive exposure for the college to have hundreds, thousands of young soccer players, you know, adult soccer players come down and see, oh, this is where, you know, SUNY Schenectady is. So I think it's a very good positive outcome. And Dr. Mono is actually tied up with a dinner meeting tonight, but I saw him earlier today, and he's 100% supportive.
Open the floor to any questions from any members. Seeing none, can I get a resolution to move this to the floor?
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to say, as a former soccer player myself in high school, not any longer, but I think this is awesome. I think for anything to continue to strengthen SEC is great, and being that me and the two Richards in District 1 is always a positive for us, so we welcome it, and I appreciate it, and thank you.
I'll add to that comment, which is anything that we can do to support sports tourism and destination programming, like soccer, like cricket, like aquatics, like hockey, is only going to serve to make this community stronger in the form of revenue collection, but a place that people do want to live, stay, play. So I appreciate and applaud the leadership team for pulling this deal together, and it certainly has my support.
It is yet another way to magnetize the county a little bit more. Can I have a motion to move this to the floor?
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by
Aye.
saying aye. Aye. So we will move this to the floor for next week's meeting. The third item that we have tonight is, by way of a little bit of background, something that we have talked about in the majority conference for quite some time now, which is efforts to address the issue of food deserts within particularly the city of Schenectady. We know they're designated locations. We are working diligently with the Electric City / Honest Weight Co-op folks and continue our commitment there. But we also recognize that that's a partial solution to a need for low-cost source of food and for purchase in the Hamilton Hill Vale neighborhood. We've looked at a number of ways to combat this, and most recently became aware of what we consider to be a really excellent site, which is 754 State Street. It's the former Mohawk Auto Center. It is located between State Street and Albany Street on two different bus lines, with abundant amount of space to develop a market, a store, a supermarket. Maybe I'll stop there, but we believe that the proposal we're putting forward here tonight, which is to exercise, to approve an option, authorize the manager to secure an option on the site, which will be followed by a request for proposals and eventually a subsidy from our ARPA funds, will result in our being able to address that issue, which has been very elusive for us for a number of years. So with that, maybe we start with Attorney Gardner. You want to discuss the option a little bit?
Sure. It's the cost of the property is $950,000. The cost of the option is $10,000, and it's if we exercise it, then that cost comes off of the purchase price, and it's preliminary to the issuance of the RFP, and we're hopeful that we put this out there on the street, and with proper funding, that there's an excellent chance that we can develop a very nice grocery store right up the street, servicing Hamilton Hill, the Vale neighborhood, and anybody who happens to drive down State Street. And we're hoping this will be a nice low-cost option for folks in the city who have limited transportation ability. It's on the bus line, and the legislature seems to be interested in going this direction, so we're trying to work with them to help facilitate this as best we can.
Getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit, because the action we're taking tonight is to move this to the agenda for next week so we can authorize the manager to enter into this option with Harridan Motor Car Company, the current owners of the site. Beyond that, we anticipate Ray Gillen's team developing a request for proposals, which we will distribute far and wide and openly and transparently to any entity that is interested in responding to it. We anticipate that there would be a subsidy attached to that to assist with construction of the store. Demolition may be involved. We're not 100% certain of that, but if it is, we are looking at ways to fund that through maybe Restore New York or some other source. So this is where we are tonight. Legislator Ostrowich.
I just want to say thank you. This has been such a long process and a well-identified issue that Schenectady's been facing for quite some time. And I know there's many, many people that have been involved in the legislature as well as in Metroplex. So thank you for all the work and all the people that you've brought into the process.
I have my days when I feel like I'm Captain Ahab and that grocery store is my white whale. So maybe now we are on the cusp of something. Anyone else wish to make any comments or ask any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Here.
Legislator Fields.
I also would like to acknowledge some sort of thanks for this particular resolution, in a sense, coming forward before committee. For many years, people in the neighborhood of Hamilton Hill and Vale have complained that they really don't have a proper grocery store. Again, as you mentioned, that's ambulatory or somewhere near them that they can say it's actually in their neighborhood. And this particular proposal that the county is putting forward actually helps to satisfy that particular cry that has been made for over the many years. So this is actually a good first step, and hopefully it'll be successful in the next coming weeks or months as things begin to close and open.
Well, we hope the market will see the subsidy and see the opportunity, and responsible developers will step forward. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, hearing none, can I have a motion to move this to the floor?
A motion?
Moved by Legislator Fields, second by Legislator Rochalik. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And with that, we have concluded the 3 items on the Economic Development and Planning Committee agenda tonight, and the committee is closed. Thank you all for your participation and attendance.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Housing and Human Services, to be chaired by Legislator I take that back. I'm out of order. Education and Libraries, Legislator Pratt. Look.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hereby call the Committee on Education and Libraries to order. We have just one item on the agenda tonight, pretty straightforward. It's a resolution regarding the adoption of a schedule for the disposition and retention of county government records. So that's item EL2, and we have the county manager to give us a little more background.
So we just passed and you guys authorized the retention schedule in 2020. Prior to that, it hadn't been done since like 2000, and that's because the state hadn't put out a schedule to be approved by local governments. So it's a little bit odd that we're doing it again for 2023. But basically, the state law just requires that the governing body accept the new retention schedule. The retention schedule itself is just all the statutory requirements of how long we have to carry documents, some payroll type things we have to carry for 50 years, some judicial things we have to carry in perpetuity, and other things that we can get rid of or digitize within 7 years. So it's a very thick schedule. It's available out at the clerk's table if anybody is very invigorated about this.
Are there any major changes from 2020?
Not really. There is some expansion for allowing localities to digitize records, and the county clerk, our records officer out at Keller Ave is well started on that process. We've put some money in from the 2022 capital budget for a couple pieces of machinery, another person to actually start on this process. But it's a very large process. If anybody's seen our records management building, it's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of boxes.
Do we have any questions or comments? I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second. We have a second from Legislator Austerlitz. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the initiative is reported to the agenda, and the Committee on Education and Libraries is closed.
Thank you, Legislator Pratt. And now, not last but not least, Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Legislator Austerlitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services is now called to order. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening, and with us today is Interim Director of Public Health, Keith Brown. Thank you so much for coming. The first item on our agenda is a resolution, HHHS, number 9, a resolution to accept monies from the New York State Department of Health for the HIV Partner Services and the STD Intervention Program. If you could give us some background on that, please.
Yeah, sure. So these, all 3 items are actually fairly procedural. These are because they're multi-year contracts for us to enter into. So in terms of the HIV and STD monies, that's to do disease intervention services. So when there's a positive case, that's for us to do our sort of investigative work to see if there's other people who need to be notified, et cetera, et cetera. So it's multi-year contracts, so that's why it's in front of this body.
Great. Is there any questions or discussion? Legislator Hughes?
No, I was just going to make the motion to report the item, but maybe someone has.
Any other questions or any questions? All right. Any?
Oh, my motion is out there. So.
Okay. Can we have a second? Second. Thank you, Legislator McDonald. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And the issue is, or the initiative is brought to the floor. Second, we have HHS 10, a resolution to authorize a multi-year agreement and accept monies from the New York State Office of Children and Family Services to continue the Healthy Schenectady Families Program.
So in addition to the multi-year contract piece, there was a slight change in this funding in that our federal funding has ceased and the state funding has been increased to cover that amount. So the entire funding stays flat, but it's sort of a change in just where it's coming from. And the work of Schenectady Families is a home visiting program for households with pregnant people or infants in the household, and is related to the safety of that household.
Thank you. Can you just comment, maybe now that we're sort of in the endemic phase, post-pandemic, how things are shaping up for families in need?
You know, post-pandemic, people were impacted obviously economically and otherwise, a lot of mental health challenges for families. So we're seeing the need increase sort of across the board for all of our sort of supportive set of services. So we would anticipate between that, some of the changes with the economy that people are facing, that work is probably more important now than it's ever been.
So we're grateful for this funding. Are there any other questions or comments?
Move to report.
May I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The initiative is moved to the floor. Last is HHS 11, a resolution to accept monies from the New York State Department of Health from the Drinking Water Enhancement Grant Program.
Again, flat funding, but multi-year contract that we need to enter into. So it's going to continue the work that we do on the drinking water safety program.
And is that mostly just testing?
It's testing, it's reviewing plans, especially important for non-traditional wells and other sort of unique circumstances. So we do have some of that in the county, so it's important to have that work to be able to work with both homeowners, municipal facilities, other players to make sure that drinking water stays safe.
Great. Good tie-in to the safety water issue that we talked about earlier. Any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
A second? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the initiative is moved to the floor. That is the last of our items and concludes our business this evening. Housing and Human Services Committee is now closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee on Labor and Civil Service to be chaired by Legislator Frazzoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Committee on Labor and Civil Service to order. There are two items on the agenda. The first is LCS 17, a resolution regarding a multi-year agreement with ProAct for pharmacy benefit management services. County Attorney Gardner is here to provide information on this initiative.
Our contract with ProAct, and we were able to negotiate a new contract which will provide us savings of approximately $400,000 each year over this 3-year term, or about 8.8% per year. I'd like to point out that we're spending less on our prescription drugs in 2021 and 2022 than we did in 2004. This is due to a large number of reforms, including our Canadian drugs, our incentivized mail order, and also to getting a new PBM, which when we brought ProAct in, they saved us about 10% over our prior pharmacy benefit manager, which was Express Scripts. So this would save us some money and give us stability for the next 3 years, help us save some money.
Are there any questions or comments? Legislator Pratt?
Just a quick comment. As I was reading through, it really is remarkable that we're, the cost is lower today than in 2004. So just want to thank County Attorney Gardner and your team for your diligence and hard work over the years to keep costs down, and really quite amazing. So thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hughes?
Somewhat seconding Legislator Pratt, but we talk about the top line around here quite a bit in terms of our ability to go year to year without increasing the property tax. But one of the ways we do that is through the extraordinarily smart management of our employee health program, because as a government employer, we offer some pretty generous benefits, but we do it in the most cost-effective way that we can. And the feedback I've had from ProAct has been very good. They're a New York State-based company. They're up in northern New York. You call the phone number, you talk to somebody in Governor or somebody pretty close there, and they generally are able to sort your issue out quite well. So this seems to be working for us, and it's part of this larger strategy that we have to bend the curve and actually get the curve going in the other direction on our health care costs. And I certainly commend our team for that, but also the legislature for our commitment long-term to looking at those costs.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Fields?
Thank you very much. Just a quick question. I remember when we started this program many years ago, Schenectady County was one of the 2 counties in the state of New York that...
We were the only county.
We're the only county at that time.
No, there are only 2 counties in the country. The other one was Springfield, Massachusetts, the city of Springfield. And then they stopped for a while. So we're the longest continuous Canadian drug program in the United States. So
Thank you very much for qualifying.
Springfield did come back to it because they missed it once they left. So.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to report?
So moved.
Mr. Hughes, second. Mr. McDonald? All those in favors?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. The initiative is reported to the agenda. The next item is LCS 18, a resolution regarding the submittal of claims by the county and acceptance of monies as provided in the New York State Healthcare Worker Bonus Program. County Manager Fluman is here to provide information on this initiative.
So this is a very exciting announcement. Governor Hochul, in part of her 2023 budget, tried to put forth significant funds across the state for healthcare worker bonuses. This is strictly for recruiting healthcare folks, retaining healthcare folks, and rewarding healthcare folks. These are for patient-forward-facing healthcare employees. We had a significant number out at our Glendale nursing home, and also some folks in our community mental health services and public health qualify for this. So what we're asking for tonight is authorization to receive these funds. Folks who qualify for this program, it's upwards of $3,000. So that's significant monies for some of our lower paid employees. They'll come in $1,500 increments with 6 months of previous qualifying work. So all the work on our end as far as being a qualified employer and who actually qualifies for this money has been submitted to the state. We just heard word that everybody that we submitted for will receive these bonuses. So as soon as we receive these funds, which is supposed to be within a month's time, we'll be able to cut those bonus checks to our employees.
Are there any questions or comments?
It's really just a comment, but if you can take your mind back to March of 2020 and how scary that was, and be in the position of being the legislative body that was trying to keep a nursing home running through that, we owe a huge debt to those workers and for their sacrifice and their willingness to stick their necks out. And I'm really glad that we're the governor now, and we can distribute payments to those folks that really went beyond what many people would have been willing to do. So this is a good thing.
Legislator Rothschild?
Hear, hear. They deserve every cent. I wish we could do that for all the health workers and folks that put themselves on the line during the pandemic. I just want to make sure this doesn't affect any of the bonuses that folks have gotten in the past.
No, this is completely state funded on top of everything that the county has decided to give our employees over the year through contractual.
Nice.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to report?
Move to report.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hughes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. That concludes our business. The Committee on Labor and Civil Service is now closed.
Thank you. Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting to be chaired by Legislator Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll call to the order the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting. We have 2 items tonight. First is PSF 18, a resolution regarding budgetary amendments to the Capital Improvement Program for the Office of Schenectady County Sheriff for the uplifting of vehicles. You all had a chance to read it. Self-explanatory. We'd like to get these vehicles uplifted and out on the streets. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? And move to the floor. Second item is PSF 19, a resolution to accept monies from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for purposes outlined in the statewide Interoperable Communications Grant Program. And Kevin Spahn, our Director of a Unified Communications Center, is here with us tonight to explain it for you.
Thank you, sir. Again, we're in receipt of a new grant. This one's for $1,197,673. This is specified directly again to go towards our communication system that we put up over the last several years. This is to help pay for maintenance and to keep growing. This is a statewide initiative that just continues. We'd like to pay the maintenance fee with part of that money. The system costs money to keep up and running, obviously, and that would defray the costs for the county and for our partners, city, towns. And then what's left is let's move on to what I call phase 2. Phase 2 in this process, part of it is replacing the old MRD tower that we have up on Crawford Hill, what's known as Crawford Hill. This tower couldn't be used originally because it's unsafe, it's dangerous, it's got to go. We borrowed space with our friends at CDTA from their tower, which is right next door. So we'd like to obviously move on to phase 2, which is just remove that tower, put our equipment on our own tower there and get off CDTA's space they're letting us use.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions?
Move to report.
We have one question.
If you could just talk a little bit about the savings that, I mean, there's a lot about this program that is so fantastic, but about the savings that the municipalities themselves no longer have to bear, and especially with this grant?
So that's kind of been the plan if we continue to get these grants. The grants obviously are, we never know for sure, but we did get a grant. Obviously, in this case, it would replace the interoperable budget that we put out, which was $295,000. So we would take that cost away from us and from our partners and pay it using the grant money. That is what other counties do across the state to offset some of the costs of the system.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone against? Motion's moved to the floor. PSF 18, Public Safety and Firefighting is closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last committee of the evening is the Committee on Ways and Means, to be chaired by Legislator Fields.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Ways and Means Committee is now come to order. Our first item on the agenda is Ways and Means number 5, which is a bonding resolution that the county is putting forth of additional $15.9 million. And John McPhillips can work through with some of the details of the various projects that we're actually funding in this particular proposal.
Thank you, Chairman Fields. As the chairman had mentioned, this is a authorization to issue approximately $15.9 million worth of obligation serial bonds that are associated with the capital projects associated with the 2022 to 2027 capital plan that this body adopted in October of 2021, as well as any amendments associated with previous capital projects and plans. And there have been a number of those only because of supply chain and procurement issues, which all municipalities and the private sector are dealing with in general. In the cover memo, you can sort of see how those projects are laid out in sort of subject areas. The actual bond resolution itself details the project-specific nature of the bond issuance by both project and dollar amount.
So for the new members that are here, these are projects that we voted on last year for the budget for this year, and now we're exercising the resolution to go ahead and bond for it.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, this is just simply authorization to bond. This body, as well as in conversations with the county manager's office and the Department of Finance, may ultimately decide to cash capitalize some of these projects based on available funding and whether or not we could perhaps leverage additional outsource, whether it's state or federal funds, so the taxpayers don't have to bear this. But the bond authorization needs to be in place, so if and when the county decides to bond, the authorization is in place and we can go to the street.
Any questions?
Just a clarifying question, and I think you just answered it, which is we are authorizing the ability for us to bond when we want to bond, if we want to bond. Right now, bond market may or may not be favorable. We have a cash position that we may want to pay forward. This is simply an authorization to take an action.
That is correct.
Any other questions? We have a motion. May I have a second? Second. Mr. Fazzoni, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the resolution is moved.
Mr. Chairman,
Hughes. Yes, Mr. Hughes.
I'm noting the remainder of the Ways and Means agenda consists of items dual referred from other committees, so they've been pretty thoroughly discussed earlier this evening. And I'm asking if you would entertain a motion to move the remainder of this calendar in its entirety.
On a motion by Mr. Hughes to move the entire remaining calendar, thank you for your observation. May I have a second with that, please? Second. Thank you very much. Mr. Fazzoni, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the entire Ways and Means calendar is now been moved. And with that, the Ways and Means Committee has now come to an end.
Thank you, Legislator Fields, and that concludes our business this evening. Thank you all.